Hey friends, today we reflect on Ecclesiastes chapter 3 verse 16 and 17. Solomon here presents a problem that we have all grappled with. It was a problem during his time and it is a problem during our time. In verse 16 Solomon says, I also observed under the sun there is wickedness at the place of judgment, and there is wickedness at the place of righteousness. Solomon noticed that where there was supposed to be justice, there was injustice. Those who were supposed to enforce justice were not enforcing justice, they were enforcing wickedness. Solomon noticed that the righteous, instead of upholding righteousness, they were practicing and they were upholding wickedness. Now this, as I mentioned, is a problem that even today, we grapple with. But then in verse 17 he says, I said to myself, God will judge the righteous and the wicked, since there is a time for every activity and every work. And so Solomon does end by telling us that although we see just injustice where there should be justice, although there are people who are supposed to ensure that justice is served, especially those in leadership position, whether it is at the church. Although there are people who do not uphold righteousness, there are people who corrupt the ways of the Lord, and perhaps in the courts there may not be justice, perhaps the government itself there may not be justice, but Solomon says, do not worry, God will bring in justice. There is a time for everything, and God is going to bring in justice. I would like to end with a verse or several verses from Isaiah 35. Now, I will be reading from verse 3, and I will go all the way down to verse 10. Isaiah 35, verse 3 to verse 10. The chapter only has 10 verses, but I'm going to begin from verse 3. And here Isaiah speaks of hope, but Isaiah speaks of the hope that will come at the second coming of Jesus Christ. And let me just read it because it is very detailed, and I believe that this is a wonderful way to close this reflection on Ecclesiastes 3, 14 and 15. Was it 14 and 15? Anyways, let me read. Verse 3. Strengthen the weak hands, steady the shaking knees. Say to the faint-hearted, be strong, do not fear. Here is your God. Vengeance is coming. God's retribution is coming. He will save you. Then the eyes of the blind will be opened, and the ears of the deaf unstopped. Then the lame will leap like a deer, and the tongue of the mute will sing for joy. For water will gush in the wilderness and streams in the desert. The parched ground will become a pool of water, and the thirsty land springs of water. In the haunt of jackals, in their lairs, there will be grass, reeds, and papyrus. A road will be there and a way. It will be called the Holy Way. The unclean will not travel on it, but it will be for him who walks the path. Even the fool will not go astray. There will be no lion there, and no vicious beast will go up on it. They will not be found there, but the redeemed will walk on it. And the ransomed of the Lord will return and come to Zion with singing, crowned with unending joy. Joy and gladness will overtake them, and sorrow and sighing will flee. It sounds almost like Revelation 21 and 22. So here is the greatest hope presented, Jesus, and that when Jesus will come, Jesus will redeem us, and Jesus will take us to heaven, and that heaven is going to be a wonderful place where there will be no injustice, where there will be no wickedness, where righteousness will be upheld, where justice will be upheld, and Christ will be the center of that place. And that is why it's going to be a wonderful place. But even as we live in this world, if we commit our lives to Jesus Christ and if we focus on the way, then Christ will preserve us in the midst of this injustice. He will find a way to preserve us, to bring us joy and happiness. But our ultimate joy and happiness, our ultimate justice and righteousness will be served when we are redeemed from this world. May the Lord bless you, and I hope that you have a wonderful day.